Hi, I'm Femi OK, and you're in the stream. Today, confined cells, convicted criminals, and despair. These are just a few of the very harsh realities of prison life. So why add babies to the mix? This is a side of prison life that we don't get to hear much about. Malika Bilal is the digital producer of the stream. What is our community saying about this topic?
Well, they have lots of questions, which is always great for us, but they're also already discussing children's rights versus the rights of mothers as inmates. And so let's dip into some of that discussion here. MPA writes, this is complicated. I think the mother's right to be with the child and the child's right to be with the mother comes first. But there's also this point of view from Mohammed, who writes, this can also be seen as, why should a child be punished for their mother's crimes? Those are two views. We want your view as well. So join us with hashtag AJStream.
And joining us in the studio, we have Mihosi Benton. And Mihosi spent several months raising her daughter in a prison nursery at the Bedford Correctional Facility for Women in New York. Mihosi, it is great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We're going to hear a lot more from you and all about your story in just a moment. So I'm going to tell you that the stream, do I need to tell you? It is your show. So tell us what stories that you think we should be talking about. You can check us out on Google Plus and let us know what you want to see on the show. It's really easy. You scroll down, you can find lots of places to comment, to pitch your ideas, and then they actually might end up on a future program. Right now though, have a look at some of the hashtags that our community is following. Around the world, incarcerated women are forced to abandon their babies soon after giving birth. In the United States, nearly 10,000 babies are born to mothers behind bars each year. The majority are immediately sent to live in foster care or with relatives. But in 10 states, babies are allowed to stay with their mum in prison nurseries. And this could be from anywhere from 30 days to 30 months. With strict entry requirements and limited space, competition to get in is extremely high. The aim of the nursery programs is to allow mother and child to bond and to try to reduce the number of women who return to jail. But critics argue that a prison environment is detrimental to the child. So if a mother gives birth while behind bars, what do you do with the baby? Joining us to talk about this via Skype from Chicago, we have Gail Smith. She's a senior policy consultant for CLAIM. That's a law firm providing services to incarcerated mothers and children. And also on the phone from New York, we have Barbara Blanchard-Lewis. She's the former director of the Children's Center at the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for Women. So ladies, everybody, it's great to have you here in the stream. I'm going to make our audience, Malika Bilal, go very easily by looking at my laptop. Have a look here. Here we have Mihosi and her little baby Serenity. Mihosi, do you remember this picture?
Yes.
Where are you?
In the Bedford Hills nursery.
Okay.
Actually, they photographed that in the daycare. Is where, you know, if you have programs or doctor's appointments, we have people that will take care of your child while you're away. And we did the photo shoot down in the daycare.
And how old was Serenity right there?
She was 3 weeks.
Oh my goodness, brand new baby.
Yes.
Giving birth in prison was like what?
Giving birth in prison was very, very hard. It's a choice you have no choice but to deal with. You can send your baby home in 2 days, or you can make that choice to keep your baby with you. And also the facility has the last say, so if you are
So you have a choice. You could have said, actually, I want someone else to look after Serenity.
Yes.
Okay.
And I thought bonding with Serenity was detrimental. I felt like it was what she needed and what I needed in order for her to thrive. So I made that choice to keep my child with me.
Right, but there are only 10 places around the United States where this can actually happen for you as a mum. How did you find that place where you said, okay, I'm pregnant, I need to get into that place?
And it's so funny because I heard about it. I was arrested and I was in jail. I found out after I was in jail that I was pregnant.
Right. You know, everybody's wondering what you did jail time for.
For burglary.
Okay.
And it was me and my kid's father, my children's father, and love will definitely make you do some crazy things that you never thought you would do.
Right.
And I did what I did, and I ended up in jail, pregnant, with not many options.
Right.
So hearing that they had a nursery, I said, I definitely have to get to Bedford Hills.
Okay.
And
it's famous. Bedford Hills is
yes.
famous. What have you heard about it?
Everything.
In the prison community, it's like, how can somewhere be famous in the prison world? Why is it famous?
Well, it's known for everything. It's known for being the #1 women's facility. Right. That alone is like, everybody knows that facility.
Okay.
And it's a maximum facility, so lifers go there and stay there.
So what had you heard about it though? It's like, it's great, the beds are lovely, the food is good. What have you heard?
Totally disgusting, and I was frightened.
Oh, okay.
I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go there and be in the nursery in a filthy place. And they was like, well, the nursery's different. Yeah. So I was like, oh, fine. Well, if I'm going to be in a nursery and the nursery's different, then that's fine with me. You know, I have to make these sacrifices. So that's what I chose.
Wow.
Well, Mahosi, you said that the nursery was different, but online people are saying, well, it's still a prison. So there's lots of questions on what that was like day to day. So Olufemi writes in, were other inmates or wardens helpful or nasty to you? How did you manage prison work with training your child, raising your child, really?
Well, being in the nursery, you have more time for your child, and it's easy to juggle programs or doctor's appointment than in the real world. You're able to bond more, you're able to show more attention, and you're able to, when it's time to go to program, focus on what you need to focus on, because you're coming right back to your child, and it's you and that child all day, every day. You can't do that out in America, in the real world. You have limited time, you have work, and then work, you have maybe another job just to make it, and you don't have to worry about these responsibilities because you're incarcerated, and that's not one of the responsibilities, putting food on the table or paying rent. We don't have to worry about those things. We have to worry about maintaining our living arrangements and taking care of our child and programs or doctor's appointments, and that's not many responsibilities compared to the outside world.
Gail, this is going to be new to quite a lot of people who are just sort of flummoxed sitting there watching this and saying, but they're an offender, why should they be able to keep their child? What would be your response to that?
Yeah, so first of all, it is so harmful to the baby to be separated from the mother. It's so much better for them to be with the mother. Since most mothers are convicted of very minor nonviolent offenses, they're going to be home soon, and you can never recover that initial time for bonding. The damage is done. You can reunite with your child, but it's not the same. So to have that time from birth to bond is the most important thing. However, I think Mahoshi made a really good point about being in that program gave her time to focus on her child, and she didn't have to work. One of the reasons we strongly prefer community-based mom and baby programs for incarcerated women is because it gives them a gradual changeover to taking on those responsibilities. They can, after spending time with their baby, getting strong substance abuse treatment, which is a big issue for most moms, gender-specific trauma-informed treatment in the community. They then can get job training.
What do you mean by
so they can actually go out?
Would you, for instance, so Mahosi said that she was caught involved in burglary. So if she was in a community-based program, that means that she could just go home at the end of the day, that she wasn't actually in prison?
No, they're residential programs.
Okay.
They're a gradual step down in security. They're enormously successful, very tiny, sometimes zero repeat offense rates. So they're tremendously successful. They're tremendously less expensive than prison nurseries. And the staff there can work with the extended family. So the mother's support system is going to be stronger when she comes home. They've been working with the grandma, the dad, whoever is appropriate, older children in the family, because a lot of times it's not just the baby. There's a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old. Very young children can come and be with them as well. Older children who are school age come in several times a week so that you aren't undoing the damage of the mother being hundreds of miles away.
Right. Okay, Malika.
Well, Bobby, I want to bring you in here with the impact on the mother and the child, the potential impact, really. Our community is talking about the bonding experience that happened. So Carla wrote to us saying that bonding can help both the mother and the baby. I'm so over prisoners and felons being treated less than human, she says. But then there's pushback from this person who writes, on the one hand, the mother-baby bonding is important. On the other hand, no child wants to live with the fact that they spent 1 year, up to a year, of their lives in jail. Are there instances of stigma against children, or can there be instances in your experience, you being the director of the center at Bedford for a while?
My experience was that mothers would make a decision when they would tell their children that they had been born while she was incarcerated and raised for the first year on a prison nursery. Many would wait until the child was in their teens, if that was possible, if another family member didn't inform them. And I didn't, at the moment when you're making that decision about whether you're going to stay with your child or your child's going to stay with you, that piece of it is a very minor, for most women, it's a very minor factor in the decision. And what's really the significant factor is the benefit that they know their child will experience by staying with them, having that first year of really building resilience with the primary caregiver, and being in an environment that is so supportive and so nurturing, far more so than possibly what that child would be placed in with a grandmother who was older, overwhelmed, maybe caring for multiple children, etc. So really at the moment the mother makes the decision, that's my experience is that is not a significant factor. It comes up later when they're leaving and they're thinking about those things, and I've many conversations with moms about it, but the benefit far outweighs any real stigma.
So, Mihosi, I see you nodding here. I'm looking at two pictures, a picture of your two youngsters here. So Serenity is now 4 and Nigeria is 6. So who's asking you about, Mummy, where was I born? Does anyone say?
My son.
Okay, he's asking
Asked
what?
with Serenity, and where was I for so long? Yeah. And I tell him, Mommy and Daddy both made some bad choices, and we had to go away for a little time. And I said, how you make bad choices and do something that you're not supposed to do, and Mama put you on punishment, send you to your room. He goes, yes. I was like, it's the same thing for adults. You make bad choices and you have to face the consequences. And he said, okay, I understand that, but why so long, Mom?
Yeah.
And I said, well, the worse decisions you make, the worse consequences there are for them.
I'm going to play you something from a law professor called Jim Dwyer. Now, Jim is a law professor at the College of William and Mary, and he really doesn't like prison nurseries. Mm-hmm. I don't think he likes community care for offenders who have babies or have young children. Have a listen to him, because I really want to see what your reaction is to him.
Well, first of all, demand for adoption of newborns is extremely high. It far exceeds the availability of newborns. So there's no question that these babies could easily be adopted by the most qualified adoptive applicants that we have. And so would be pretty much guaranteed a good life. But with these women, the state now tethers these children legally to these women who are deeply damaged because of their background, and I too feel great sympathy for them, but they are just not good candidates for parenthood.
I think you get where Jim was going there. He was saying you're deeply damaged, you should probably give up your baby for adoption. What is your reaction to that?
I definitely don't agree. I feel like they decide if the mother is suitable, but I feel like a mother should be given the chance to be the mother of that child, because it's no other relationship like a mother and child relationship. And in the end, I feel like the child feels it. So to not give that mother a chance to see if she's fit or not is unrealistic. We chose that.
I would add to that adoption outcomes aren't always wonderful. That he makes a lot of assumptions. His work is very flawed in many ways, but that's one massive flaw, which is, that adoption is a perfect solution to troubled family situations. Certainly adoptions are fraught.
Yeah.
Okay, and Gail, what did you want to add?
Yes, and I also want to add that it is unconstitutional to end parental rights unless there's been a legal finding that the mother is unfit. Having to serve a short prison sentence for an offense does not make someone unfit. Who among us, and this is a child's right as well, who among us would not rather be raised by our mother if that's possible? So I am appalled by him focusing on the demand for babies. That completely violates human rights of both the mother and the baby. I'm horrified by his position.
See, I'm looking at a graph back here, and it tells me about how many men in state prison have kids. So no kids is the yellow, the red and then the blue, the men who have children. And then I'm just going to scoot down a little bit, and with women, it's more than half of women in state prison have children. So the question is then, what do you do about that? If we've got nurseries in prison, Barbara, and we've got a community option, which one would you say is better for the mums, bearing in mind where you've worked in the past?
Well, as a service provider, there was a lot of advantage to sort of the wisdom of no escape. Moms would tell me if I wasn't here, I would not be with my child, etc. However, I am a strong advocate for alternatives, because those same women really did not belong in prison, many of them. And the overall prison setting, its punitiveness, its lack of nurturance of the family, was a constant struggle for the women and for the service providers. So I don't think there's a better alternative, although I think that there are certain individuals that I worked with for whom prison was the ultimate wake-up call, and it was the thing that transformed them.
Well, Barbara, you're not the only one who thinks that an alternative is necessary. And Gail, I want to bring you in here with some suggestions from our community. So on Facebook, Denise says the U.S. needs to stop incarcerating so many people for low-level crimes. Having nurseries and jails is just a way of saying that we don't intend to reduce our over-reliance on prisons. So someone else follows up with a suggestion, and Antonia says a better option would be to provide community release and support. Most of these women can be safely supervised in the community. I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but can you go into a little bit more detail on what that community organization would look like?
Absolutely. So there was actually federal legislation some years ago, but it has not, because we are a country far too in love with prison-based programs, it has not been adequately implemented. Family unity programs would be a whole bunch of smaller programs in the home community where the women and their children would get continuity of care, so that not only are they drawing from the staff in the residential center, but they're making connections that will continue after release with community resources. And again, keeping that extended family as a resource, keeping that extended family intact, where the older children are seeing mom daily, if possible. They are immensely successful, and since the overwhelming majority of women are in for nonviolent offenses, it really makes sense that we ought to be implementing them. In testimony before the U.S. Senate, former warden of Bedford Hills, Elaine Lord, said that she felt that 75% of women currently in Bedford Hills at that time should be eligible for community release. We need to develop the political will. We need to make it safe for legislators to vote for that and not have this punitive, mindless, tough on crime. We need to get smart, and we need to implement more family-based programs, and that will reduce crime.
Okay, so see, Gail, I hear what you're saying about the punitive approach to childcare with offenders and mums who are either pregnant, about to have babies, got young babies. Well, we're looking at some pictures of the Bedford facility. We're looking at nurseries. It looks lovely. It looks fantastic in there. It's like you've got armchairs and toys. I don't see any bars or keys or anything. So Mihosi, if someone's saying, look, you burgled some houses here, why are you having such a fine old time in prison? What is your reaction to that, Mihosi?
Well, I would say it's not that I'm having a fine old time. It's that I'm being treated with dignity, for one. You know, the nursery is for an environment for the mother and children, but mostly for the children, so they can feel love, so they can thrive on that love, and so they can be civilized and not become what their parents were.
So if you do that for the children, which is like you're taking care of the kids because they didn't do anything wrong. Right. Serenity is gorgeous, you did nothing wrong. So you're taking care of Serenity, but then does that mean that we compromise on the fact that you haven't learnt from the action that you did?
But at the end of the day, we're still in prison.
Right. And that means what?
You're not getting treated any better than well, you might be getting treated in the sense where they have more respect for you, because the CEOs tend to not have respect for you, but you're not given any privileges other than what other inmates would be receiving or not receiving. That does not go.
I'd also like to add that in high quality mother-infant programs, the moms are going through treatment and learning better ways of living, better ways of parenting, and learning to leave their addiction behind. That's hard work. You know, yes, it should be a respectful environment. Yes, it should be a good environment for mothers and kids. It should be a healthy environment. But also, let's not forget that the work that they are doing to turn their lives around is no picnic. It's difficult.
Right.
It can be painful, and it's what's going to make them a better parent as well as a better citizen, and put them in a position where they can support their families.
Sure. That's Gail Smith.
Can I add to that?
I'm going to ask you, Barbara, to add to that when we come back in our post show at stream.aljazeera.com. So that's Barbara Blanchard-Lewis. She's a former director of the Children's Center at the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for Women. Also spoke to Gail Smith, a senior policy consultant for CLAIM, and also Mihosi Benton, who was you're a former offender.
Yes.
You had your baby in prison.
Yes.
And now work with other former offenders in New York. So more conversation to be had, but not right now. We've just got time to check in with Malika with some other stories that the stream is following.
We start in Morocco, where a statement from the Prime Minister telling women to stay home has driven them into the streets. Have a look. Some 100 women protested outside Parliament Tuesday, chanting against Prime Minister Abdelilah bin Karan. The Prime Minister compared women to chandeliers in Parliament last week and asked, "Don't you realize that when women went to work outside, the light went out of their homes?" Well, some Moroccans responded with hashtag Ana Mashi Thria, or I am not a chandelier. Kassivian tweets, "I have other ambitions besides being a chandelier." Next, we look at the World Cup, which is dominating social media. One British group is playing off that interest to shed light on abuse. Tinder, an anti-domestic violence group, has launched hashtag Stand Up World Cup. Their campaign is based on the work of UK researchers who monitored the last 3 World Cups and found a 38% increase in domestic violence whenever England lost a match. They tweet, "The World Cup doesn't cause domestic violence, but some perpetrators use wins and losses as excuses for their attacks." Well, British police in Lancashire sent their own message. They tweeted this ad, "Win or lose, World Cup is no excuse for domestic abuse. Leave the striking to the players." But for more on those stories, you can head over to stream.aljazeera.com and let us know what you think. Femi?
Well, Cal, I am such a fan. We have fans on the stream. Are your little ones, are they following the World Cup? Are they too young?
Too young.
All right, you're lucky. Next one in 4 years' time. On Thursday, we're going to be looking at football or soccer, and we're looking at match fixing. And is the World Cup immune from betting scams? More on how these deals go down and stopping them on the next AJ stream. Stay with us. The post show is next at stream.aljazeera.com. I'll see you online. Thanks for watching. Hello again, this is the Streams Online Post Show. We're continuing our discussion on programs that allow mothers to care for their babies while incarcerated. So we're going to get right back to that conversation. Now, if I remember rightly, Bobby, you were about to jump in and I was wrapping you up because we were right at the end of that part of the show. Do you remember what your thought was? Where did you want to take us? I was saying that it looked really luxurious and lovely at the Bedford Hills facility, and Mihosi was putting me right, and Gail was saying, no, it's not about that. It's more important than that.
Well, what's often missed in this conversation is the benefit to the children and the investment that we're making in children by having programs like this either in prisons or in alternative settings.
So can you take us through a story? I know you don't want to name names, and that's fine, but give us an example.
Well, a really good example is, and this is actually this is founded in research. This isn't anecdotal. This isn't stuff that's just sort of service providers tooting their own horn. There's really significant research to show that attachment outcomes are excellent in children that experience this prison program. So even mothers who may have had really insecure attachment to their own parents are able to transmit secure attachment to their infants. That's a really significant finding and has, multi-generational impact. And we should not be ignoring that. I've also found this to be true of programs where mothers can co-reside while they're in residential treatment. One of the biggest boons to that is the benefits for the babies, the interventions that they get, the excellent daycare, the really stimulating environments, all these language enriching activities that professional providers do with children. That stuff wouldn't necessarily be happening for those kids if moms had sent those children out into the community or they were in another setting. And I don't think we should ignore that. That's breaking cycles, and that's really, really significant stuff.
Malika.
Well, Barbara was mentioning the benefits to the children. Our community wants to take us back to the potential benefits to the inmates themselves. So, Mihosi, you'd mentioned a little bit earlier as we were going into the post show that you were treated with a little bit more respect than you might have been if you weren't at Bedford. So, Shoaib on Twitter wants to know how you were treated by prison officers, and were you able to get the care you needed? Because they're not necessarily trained in child care or trained in how to deal with a baby. So what did you find your relationship with the prison officers was?
It was more humane. They was able to show the human side. They was very respectful in the sense where they didn't make you feel like you was less than because you committed a crime, or that you didn't have the ability to be a good mother. Like, they gave you that benefit of the doubt, where otherwise you would not even give that. You wouldn't get treated like you was somebody. And that's the problem with correctional facilities now, is we looked at as we're less than, and we didn't make a mistake. Like, everybody make a mistake. We just got busted, and some make more mistakes than others, or worse mistakes, but we're the blame, and we're looked at as we're nothing.
But being a new mother, just want to go a little bit more details here. Being a new mother is really hard. I don't know because I'm not one, but my sister, I'm an aunt of several nieces and nephews. And so in those new motherhood days, the baby, it learning to latch onto you, it crying and you not knowing why, where do you turn to for those kind of answers? And
well, you usually turn to your peers, because most likely the other mothers are not first-time mothers. I know I turned to my peers. Her name was Alasia, and she was terrific. She was, she made a mistake and she was in prison. She was a terrific mom, the best mom that I ever came encounter with. And it was a great experience, just the little things. I was breastfeeding my daughter, and when I looked down, there was blood coming out her mouth, and I started panicking, like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And she calmed me down and was like, it's normal. Just breastfeed her on the other side and don't just pump on this side and you'll be fine. And it was just like, oh, that's so simple. But without that reassurance from a peer, I would have never known that it wasn't so drastic. So, and the COs, most COs are mothers, are parents, so they have that input also. And they share that input because they're a little more comfortable with you because you're in that kind of environment.
So Gail, I want to play you Jim Dwyer again. I'm going to try another little video clip, see how this works out. He was talking about child rights, and I know you're going to have an interesting conversation off the back of that. But he makes a point about, well, kind of babies didn't choose to be in prison, so why should they be? Have a listen to him.
Surprising, given that we have laws about putting people in prison, and babies are people. And to my mind, there is clearly a constitutional obstacle to these programs that no one has considered. And it's maybe just a matter of time before some advocate for children pays attention enough to challenge the programs on that ground.
Gail.
So first of all, I think we have to understand that it is far more harmful for the baby to be separated from the mother. That's a violation of the baby's rights. That's a violation of human rights. We do it in this country. We should not be doing it. Secondly, I think you have to make sure that the environment, the nursery environment, and there's a whole range of nurseries around the country, is not detrimental to the mother or to the child. That is a whole body of work that needs to be done. And is also one of the reasons why I strongly prefer a community-based option.
Because I have seen,
but I know that there have been, if I could, let me just bring up one small, I know that one concern that sometimes prevents mothers from choosing the nursery option, even though they don't want to be separated from their baby, is the concern of whether they're going to be able to get medical care, access to medical care quickly in an emergency. Sometimes in prisons that certainly does not happen for adults in the way that it should. So we need to strengthen our human rights perspective and our respect for the inherent dignity of every human being, the mother and the child, across the board. But I don't think that depriving a child of bonding with the mother is giving the child more rights. It's taking rights away from the child.
Is this even a debate that is happening right now? Or do most people just agree it's great that mother and baby are together, if that's possible, in prison?
I'm sorry,
Gail,
I missed the last
Gail, is that a
debate?
That's fine. Is it a debate that's even happening? To a large scale, or do most people, are they on the same page? Do they believe what you believe, that it's ideal to have a mother, a prisoner, and a baby together as long as possible? I just want to get the feeling of what the prison community is thinking.
It's a debate that we are not paying enough attention to.
Right.
When you think about the fact that thousands of babies every year are born to mothers who are incarcerated for a very brief time. We had a client a few months ago. She only had 2 months to serve. She badly wanted to breastfeed, and the prison obstructed her. I mean, they allowed her to do a breast pump, but then would mess up the freezing of the milk. You know, the bottom line was her baby did not have access to breast milk. That has implications into adulthood.
Right.
So I think we have a long way to go in the conversation of protecting babies' rights and mothers' rights and keeping the two together when the mother has been convicted of a minor offense.
Okay, Malika.
There's a really good wrap-up tweet here, the last one that I'll share from community. Esteban writes in, after tweeting several things during the show, he says, "This has completely changed my entire perspective on this issue."
Wow.
So, kudos.
Wow.
You don't see that often.
No, I've never seen that on this show before. Mahosi, Gail, Barbara, you see what you did? You're changing people's perspectives. Thank you very much for joining us in this conversation. We really appreciate your time. So moving on Thursday, match fixing in football. Is the World Cup ready to fend off corruption? More on how these deals go down and stopping them on the next AJ Street. See you soon. Thanks for watching.